And what kind of a God would create man and then make him so remarkably lustful, knowing that it would just cause men to commit rape and would spawn a multi-million-dollar porn industry that exploits women? Men like to watch porn because we think about sex all the time. And we think about sex because we're animals, and thinking about sex is good from the keep the species alive point of view. It made sense back in the caveman days to have sex with as many women as often as you could. That would ensure that your genes continue on to the next generation. The lifespan was probably so low and the death rate was probably so high back then that the only way to ensure that your species would go on would be to have as many kids as possible as quickly as possible. Now there's only one way to have lots of kids, and that's sex. Now if God didn't want us to have so much sex, why did he make it feel so good? Is that some sort of a practical joke? So God was thinking, I'm going to create man so that he likes sex, it feels fantastic, and he thinks about it all the time, and then tell him that having sex if you're not married is a bad thing. Sorry, if that's the case, then I just don't get the joke. So the next topic that's often discussed is math. Now creationists often talk about the mathematical probability that life could have come from nothing. Now first, I find it interesting that creationists ignore scientists when it comes to evolution, but are willing to embrace them wholeheartedly when scientists talk about the tremendous odds that our universe could have just come into being. So it seems to me that science only matters when it supports their point of view. Now before science, the creationists would argue their side using scripture and revelation. Science has led to mountains and mountains of evidence which do not support the idea of a creator. Still, most of it is ignored by creationists unless it supports their point of view. So science has calculated that for a universe that supports life to come into existence is practically impossible. Now the first thing to note is that scientists don't actually keep this point of view to themselves, despite the fact that it seems to help the creationist cause. If in a few years they change their theory, based on research and evidence, and it starts to favor the Big Bang and evolution, the scientists won't jump for joy and say, aha, we got you, we were right. Scientists aren't in it to prove or disprove a myth. They are scientists, so they present their theories based on research, nothing else. Now the creationists, on the other hand, would ignore or spin this information as it goes against their theory of a creator. Now as an atheist, I accept the fact that these numbers seem to indicate that it's practically impossible that a universe containing life could actually exist. I simply can't ignore all the other evidence that tells me that there is no grand creator. Now science does have a theory on how it is possible that we could live in such a universe. The theory has to do with the belief that there are many universes and that we just happen to live in one that is perfect for sustaining life. But the great thing about science is that it doesn't pretend to know everything. Scientists change their theories all the time based on the latest evidence and research. Scientists have nothing to gain or lose by being for or against religion. One thing that I find interesting is creationists don't actually say that they believe in God. They say that they believe in their God specifically. Now creationists will often say that they believe in a higher being, but really what they're talking about is their own specific God that they believe in. I'm talking about the God that is known to them from their own religion. I find it hard to take seriously any creationist who argues for God or religion if they don't at least acknowledge that they really don't know what a creator would look like. If you say you do and you know the name of his son and that his mother was a virgin, those arguments seem weak to me, and it seems to me that you're arguing more about your own religion than you are about an actual creator. Talking about your specific God and not a higher entity or presence detracts from the impact of what you're saying, in my opinion. I mean, how do you know that it isn't more than one God? How do you know it isn't a committee of gods? How do you know it isn't a guy and a girl God? For you to pinpoint specifics about that, again, just makes it sound to me like you're not saying, I believe in some sort of creator. You're defending your own specific religion, and it loses credibility in my eyes. The next popular argument is, how could something have come from nothing? And of course, the atheists always fire back, well then, who created the creator, and so on and so on. And then the creationists say that God already existed, and that he is a being of such power, and that he's timeless. So this is a being who not only has the ability to create Earth, but an entire galaxy full of stars for us to just look at. Well, actually, he didn't give us the ability to look at the stars and the universes right off the bat. I guess he figured he would just put it up there and that we would eventually learn how to make a telescope so that we could have a good look at it. Now, I would think that an all-powerful God would have just given us a telescope. I mean, why would he have it up there for thousands and millions of years if he didn't want us to really enjoy it? I mean, it seems like a lot of work. You'd think with all that work, he would have just given us a way to look at it instead of us having to devise our own device to do it. So I'm sure we started with rudimentary devices that would allow us to, say, see the moon a little better, and then, for lack of a better word, evolved into the technology we have now, which allows us to see the universe with pretty good clarity. So God created this awesome galaxy, and then he just sat back and watched to see if we could actually figure out a way to look at it. Now, amongst all of these galaxies and stars, He created this earth, this small little earth, for all of his children to live on. Our own personal aquarium, if you will. Now, I don't know if God has an engineering degree, but it is my opinion that the earth was designed extremely poorly. First of all, what's with the North and South Pole? I mean, it's not a great place for human beings to live. So there's all this wasted real estate at the top and the bottom of our planet. Why do we have deserts? They're way too hot and too dry. I mean, people die out in the desert. Again, not a really good idea. Now that I think about it, why isn't the whole planet a great big lush Garden of Eden? From top to bottom. I mean, people die from the elements all the time. You think God would have created a nice planet that was a balmy 10 degrees at night and a beautiful 25 degrees during the day? I mean, I can't believe he just threw the earth together and said, oh, I think I'll chuck a sun over here. And, you know, it's not the greatest solution, but it should be good enough for now. Creationists often talk about design. Well, if this planet was designed by a god, I would personally like to change designers.